So it's something a little bit different this morning. I thought we would start our presentation with a poll. Our topic today, as I mentioned, is going to be around virtual networking and job possibilities. So I thought it might be nice to give our presenters a little bit of an insight into your professional experiences. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll now. And you guys are welcome to select an answer. So this is just talking a little bit about your professional experience. So some of you may have had careers in your home country. Some of you may have some professional experience or some work experience, but maybe not a lot of career experience. So perhaps you're in that situation. And some of you may have just finished high school and you're coming and starting your post-secondary journey. So let's just give another few minutes here, just for a few seconds for people to launch their answers in. So a few coming through.
I want to see Sue's response.
Yeah. Don't skew our poll, guys. All right. So we have about 27 answers in, 28. So let's just end the poll now, just to get a little bit of an insight on some of our experience here. Share the results for you guys. Okay. So 55% of you guys have some professional work experience, and you're looking forward to expanding your education here at Fanshawe and really building upon some of that previous success. We have 10% of you who have been in the workforce, and now you're taking a program that'll hopefully lead you to a wonderful new career. And 34% of you have just finished secondary school and you're starting your post-secondary journey. Nice. So that's great to know, and hopefully those insights will help our presenters today to guide you in what you can do to help be successful. So I'm just going to, I'm not sure, did I end the poll now? Did the results go away? Are you still, are you still seeing the results? Oh, okay, there we go. All right. Well, that's great. Thanks, guys, for your participation in that. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen and introduce Sue, who's going to be starting us off today with some information about virtual networking.
Yes, I am so excited to be here. I have done this presentation a couple of times and it never gets old. I think really when you are starting out with your career, some of you are thinking, why is it I keep applying for a job, and my friend sent out one application and landed a job? Do you know people like that? People who seem to be really successful right off the bat? The secret to their success often comes from their networking. They have really delved into developing some relationships with people who do similar work. Not managers of companies, not HR people, but just people who are working in their field in any capacity. And through that networking, they have come to understand workplace culture, workload, life balance, specifics within the industry, so that when they have interviews, they're more successful, they're more knowledgeable. So building a network is all about learning to communicate and feel that confidence that you can develop over time. It's a skill. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Next slide, please. when we are looking at why networking is so important, it's because 80% of the jobs are not even advertised. It is really astonishing how you can open doors to jobs that are never posted through showing your positive attitude, your enthusiasm. Exchanging fresh ideas is a core part of networking. Networking isn't about going to somebody and saying, is your company hiring? That does not build a relationship. What builds a relationship is asking questions, giving an expression of your interest in that person, just like making a new friend, right? It will, through building those relationships, it will show someone your sincerity, your ability to communicate. It will also allow you a chance actually to help other people, because if you're exchanging ideas, they may say something and you say, I just learned about that in my class. Let me send you some relevant recent information. And that is how you build a relationship with someone who is working in a field that is of great interest to you. Networking also makes you more visible. It really gives you a chance to stand out in a crowd. As you start with Fanshawe, you will be invited to many events, career fairs. Businesses have events that they're giving because they're doing recruiting, but they set it up as an event. Always ask a question. Set yourself apart from the crowd. Ask a thoughtful, creative question, not one that is found where the answer's on the website, but perhaps personalize it. How did you find the job? What do you like best? Start early being interested in people sincerely. And that comes back tenfold. When you're networking, it becomes a resource more than just Google. We can all Google information, get the hard facts, the mission of a company, the vision of a company, the geographical locations of a company. What we cannot find out through a website is the personalities that fit. Because if you are sincerely looking for a workplace that you will thrive and enjoy and be able to contribute to, it's also about how do you fit with the work that's being done, the personalities that are at that place. And if you can learn that in advance of an interview, then you'll be more confident again that you're expressing those same thoughts. See, networking is about connecting with people you know to generate leads and referrals. But first you have to get to know them. And people miss that step sometimes. They go right for those questions of, is your company hiring? Start with the people you know to practice and then branch out, because this is a skill that needs practice. Seek out some of those new contacts to build that network, and understand it is that two-way street that gives you a chance to express some interest, share some of your good ideas, ask smart and thoughtful questions that don't just occur off the top of your head, but maybe you've made some notes before you've talked or chatted with this person. Because networking really can happen anytime, any place. Friends, parents, aunts, uncles, in the grocery store. Talk to the cashier. How did you get your job? What do you like best about working here? What's your favorite part of the day? Practice asking these questions, because it truly can be done virtually anywhere. We also encourage you to work with career services on campus. I am one of a huge team. There are 12 to 13, sometimes 14 co-op consultants working with over 70 programs. There's also career consultants who give workshops regularly on LinkedIn and how to network in the Canadian workplace. And you can go to your job site and link up with those. They're all free, available to every student, even if you're not in a co-op program. And you can continue to experience and practice networking, because networking with students in other programs is a perfect place to practice the skill. Another phenomenal resource many students miss are your senior group. previous students to Fanshawe, those alumni who have graduated. They've already taken those first steps. They're just ahead of you. They may have some really good ideas about what works well, especially virtually, because things have changed since the pandemic. People working at home are happy to talk to someone about their profession. I love talking about what I do, and I'm sure Robert does too. So if somebody knocks on our door because we're at our home office, we can grab our cup of coffee, take a little coffee break, have a 10-minute chat. It's fantastic. It makes us feel helpful. It helps you learn, and most professionals are happy to do that. But you have to take that first step and do a few emails or linking in beforehand. And I bet if it's an alumni or a graduate that recently came through the process, they can totally relate to what you're doing. Some of the things that are important with finding your success, next slide please, is that fit. I mentioned it earlier. What does fit mean? It can mean many things. It can mean understanding the value of that company. Maybe that company participates in supporting children's charities or seniors charities or educational commitments or commitments to the green environment. I mean, that's a big hook. They all generally have a passion over and above making money every day and making profit. They want to give back. That's a very Canadian thing. So they give back in time. Yes, they give back in money, but they give back in cheerleading, a cause, a charitable cause or something important, often to the owner or to the group if it's a large company. So that's a value. And there may be definitely traditions. You will encounter many family-owned companies that are second generation, third generation. They are really family, parents and grandparents and wives and sons. They're all working together. So that isn't always evident on a website, and it can create a specific culture. If they see you as one of the family, fantastic. So it's about beliefs and interactions. Your positive attitude will never steer you wrong. Your passion and enthusiasm for your business. So fit is as much about who you are and how you show up at the company as it is the company itself. Perfect example, Laura and I work in different departments at Fanshawe, but we both work for Fanshawe. We express our passion to help you as international students quite differently, but you're never going to be guessing that we're both very committed to your success, right? We both fit the Fanshawe philosophy, even though we show up a little bit differently to everybody. We still are expressing similar values and similar important things. Does that make sense to you? We understand the business etiquette and the workplace culture of Fanshawe, that we're here for you, to support you. We're in service to help you. And both of us have that belief, and we feel it really strongly, even though outwardly we may express it a little bit differently. Next slide, please. So before any virtual networking event, such as a career fair or a company run specific come and meet us, make sure you test your equipment. Before I came on this morning, I checked my lighting, checked my microphone, looked for, this is my regular home office. I do have a piano in my background. It's a small room. Make sure you have a little pen and a pad of paper. Some people will use a nice little book that they fill up with notes and keep it very organized. So before an event, if it's virtual, you're taking a lot of information. Have a place to drag and drop that, whether just a blank page or a Google Doc. Be organized before the event so that you're not scrambling during the event. And prepare that elevator pitch. What's an elevator pitch? An elevator pitch is the answer to when somebody meets you and says, so what do you do? Who are you? What's your interest? You want to talk maybe a little bit about you're a student at Fanshawe, education. Want to talk a little bit about your experience. I just finished high school, or I just finished an undergraduate, or I've just worked for 3 years. If you've worked, you can elaborate a little bit. And you can talk about, I'm really passionate about design, or I really love architecture. My uncle's in architecture. Then, if you mention 3 or 4 sentences, you bounce that conversation back and ask them, what do they do? Why are they here? And if they are the worker of the company employee, it's still okay to ask those questions. I'm so nice. It's so nice to meet you. How long have you worked for this company? So again, it's just trying to be thoughtful. When they ask you, next slide, please, tell me about yourself, how that really works, that you have that. It says 30 seconds here. I figure you cover education, a little bit of your current experience and work, and why you're showing up at that event. Those are 3 or 4 good reasons that help you to figure out what to say, because sometimes we draw a blank. Everybody has skills. So if you're talking to a financial institution, talk about being numbers oriented or loving finances or logical thinking. Actually, that also works if you're in architecture or industrial mechanics. If you're in aviation, talk about your passion for flying or anything about aeronautics or aerospace. And if you're in hotel and guest services, you'll talk about interacting with people and being in service, helping people. So some of the language for your tell me about yourself needs to come from your passion for the field that you're studying, and only you know why you're studying what you're studying. So definitely highlighting the relevant skills and experience is important, but understanding how can you make a quick connection? That's through who you are as a person. There's an example when you look back at these slides. I've typed in an example of a possible answer to tell me about yourself and how you can follow those 4 main key ideas that I've just outlined. Next slide, please. One of the things that people need to remember when you're virtually networking is that dress is important. That you have really from the shoulders up, so you can wear your pajama bottoms, but you just feel more put together when you're professionally dressed. For sure, next slide, please. Some people will have business casual. The business casual is if you take a look at 1, 2, 3, 4, the fully dressed look in the middle. The 4th one is the man, the 5th one is the woman. Yeah, the shirt is striped and they're wearing jeans on the bottom, but if it's okay, people aren't seeing what you're wearing on the bottom. But having just a little bit of a professional look is a good idea. Just go back 1 slide, please. The business professional look, and Robert will I'm sure confirm this, has changed somewhat since we've been working remotely during the pandemic. It's very rare that I am dressing that professionally, carrying the briefcase. Everybody seems to be wearing, again, forward to the business casual look. So it's something to Google. Often for interviews, we dress one more professionally. However, again, the pandemic has changed us a little bit. So,
Oh, it's great. I've only had to wear a tie 3 times this year.
there you go. And I'm sure you used to wear a tie a lot more than that.
Oh, 3 days a week into the office at least.
That's it. So the business casual really works, but it needs to be neat, no spills of jam, no, breakfast on your face, and make sure that background is fairly clean. This is a lovely slide just to show you the steps of preparing for your virtual networking. Having that quiet background, no pets, no barking dogs, no doorbells or music booming. It's distracting. We already know that because we've all been on Zoom calls. Gathering those documents I talked about and then testing that equipment is so, so important. The other thing that's easy to do when you're on a Zoom call is like strange behaviors you're not even aware of because you're not maybe looking at yourself and you're all nervous or you're hunched up or you're I don't know, clicking a pen. That's one that you could be doing but you're not even aware of, and the microphone picks it up. So make sure you're calm, looking at your camera. I'm looking right into that white dot, making that eye contact, not looking up at the sky, because you're trying to make a connection. And the virtual networking is a different kind of networking. But in Canada, when we meet people face to face, we also look right in their eyes. That's actually a really important, and a big smile. So those have transferred over really well. But some people, you will notice, sometimes when I watch the news report, you can tell when they have a guest speaker on and the speaker isn't really, they might be looking over here at their notes. So they're not connecting. And that's really important if you're trying to network and make a new friend, right? It's also important for interviews. So we do focus on that one quite a bit. And that is really leads right into what I already shared, teaching yourself to be comfortable with silence. When you're having a conversation in person, there's some silence, but we seem to fill it up with a body movement or a shift in position or whatever. That's less common now with virtual. So you just have to wait for people because people think at different speeds. Also prepare for glitches. If it's rainy or sunny, I will be instructing a co-op class for 6 weeks, and sometimes and it could happen today because it's rainy. I live in the country. You may live in the country too, and our connections are not always reliable, and we just all have to be patient and understanding and wait for the person to return. Then the introduction with the smile, monitoring that body language, having that elevator pitch, speaking slowly. Now you will find some of your professors speak really slowly, and other professors speak so fast that you cannot understand them very well. And somehow that is when you need to tape and replay because they don't always repeat. I try to pick a good pace, but you need to remember to pick a good pace too, because if you speak too quickly and you have an accent that is different than a Canadian accent I'm used to, I may miss your words. So figuring out a good pace comes from practicing this. If people keep saying, "Pardon, I didn't understand, can you repeat?" then you're talking too fast. Asking relevant questions about the industry, this takes some thought. Google good questions to ask when networking. It's all on the internet, and some of that you can just copy and paste and lock in. And then learn the name of your new person so you can follow up. Send a thank you very much. The fortune's in the follow-up. Next slide, please. Using LinkedIn to expand your network is really, really useful. We have a workshop through careers to help you set up the page. It's more than just your resume. So keep in mind that jobs can come through LinkedIn. And if you're on a LinkedIn webinar, I recommend you ask that question to become known. So I encourage you all. Some of you have a class where you must do LinkedIn. Some of you who are not in business will need to follow that up on your own. Next slide, please. Here is a LinkedIn note sample that I encourage you either now take a photo of or go back in the slides, because it's just that simple to introduce yourself, what your purpose is, what you're trying to accomplish with connecting with them. And it's not finding a job, it's just developing a relationship. Next slide, please. Here are some ideas of people that you can follow. And we did talk about that. I mean, a network starts with who you know and then who they know and can introduce you to, and it expands outwards. But I still really recommend you connect with your alumni, your people who are graduates from your program. Next slide, please. These are the questions to avoid when you're networking, and I've covered many of them already. So the bottom one, asking dead-end questions or yes-no questions or questions that are on the interview is a cardinal error. You want to be thoughtful and think ahead of what those questions are to ask somebody that you're interested in finding out more about why they love working there, what they love about the company, what are the next big exciting projects. The what questions are a great place to start. Because your network is your net worth. They say that your net worth becomes the equivalent of the top 5 people that you know. Now, we don't all know Oprah Winfrey or Bill Gates or top leaders, but we know successful people. So fly with those eagles, capture their ideas, energy that will serve you well in the future. Professors, experts, go to the library virtually, talk to people in the know, look at the magazines and newspapers, listen to the news. This is where you gather and garner ideas that you can then be thoughtful about. Next slide, please. The follow-up is where you really shine. Most people skip this step. I have put a sample thank you note. It's 3 or 4 sentences. After you meet somebody, say thank you. Again, Canadians are big on those manners. They really are. At the bottom here, thank you for your time. It was really nice meeting you. I hope we can stay in touch, as I'd love to continue learning about your company or your industry. Is it okay if I touch base every few months? That's it. Next slide, please. Here is a slide with some events. Eventbrite, we try to promote these the first 2 terms. Then we figure that you're going to queue in every first Sunday of the month. Go look at and see what events are coming up for that month. And the final slide for my presentation, because then I'm going to flip it over to Robert, is on your career site. There are some fantastic job search tools, networking and website tools. And in those, there is a virtual interview practice platform. I draw your awareness to it because it's fairly new, but you can practice networking and asking questions and view yourself. You just press record and go watch it back. Just look at how is your eye contact? How is your posture? How is your volume? How is your pace of speaking? All that I spoke about today is about practicing. So I encourage you to get into action. Robert's up now with some really awesome ideas about where you can find your network when you're in London through a very professional association called the London Economic Development Corporation. It's not an association, it's a company. Beg your pardon. And Robert, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Sue. What's some great tips in your presentation. Just love it. And folks, I'm going to give you a little bit of a London context and then also share some resources to help you fine tune where you want to network, and then also share some to reinforce some of Sue's points from my perspective. So when I think about connecting for your career success, I just want to mention that it's a lifelong approach. It's not just something you start and stop. It's continuous. I'm with the London Economic Development Corporation, which is a not-for-profit organization contracted by the city to attract new businesses to come here and also to help existing businesses grow. So we're very fortunate to be very much in touch with industries in key sectors. So we have a business development team who, by the way, meets with people in your home countries to encourage them to look for operations here, as well as to help companies with their exports and other growth activities. With a very strong marketing and communications division, and you'll see some of their great work because I'll be sharing them, and also workforce development. When I say workforce development, our companies are keenly interested in talent that's emerging from Fanshawe College, as it's a critical success factor in their success. In fact, I'm so pleased you've chosen Canada. Secondly, you've chosen a great college, Fanshawe College. And thirdly, I urge you to choose London. Next slide. Just to remind you that London is so well positioned, 160 million consumers within a one-day drive. We have over 22% of us are international. We were born somewhere else, with over 160 different languages being spoken. And London companies are not just doing business in this corridor. than doing business around the world. So every day they're appreciating people who have an international perspective. Next slide, please. Just to share with you that we're urgently in need of skilled workers being produced from Fanshawe College. If you look at that comparison between 2001 to 2007, you can see that age distribution. There are an awful lot of people, somewhat like myself, who may be exiting the labor market sooner rather than later. All of this is creating opportunities. So Fanshawe College and its programs are well positioned to help meet some of those needs. And thank you for joining us in this journey. Next slide. Now, as you start to network, the key thing is that often most of us are attracted to those big brand names that we know. And we certainly have them here in London, whether or not it's a 3M or any of the major accounting companies, or in our food production areas. If you were an avid baker, you would know that Dr. Oetker is making a whole range of supplies to help you in your home area. Or if you want spices, you would be using McCormick's because they're sourcing spices from around the world. Those are all great brands in London. But when you look a little bit further, you will see that we have many more medium-sized businesses and small businesses. And they're especially appreciative of talent who not only come from a strong discipline, but also have those skills to fit within the team. Because many of us, or many of the smaller organizations, people do a number of different tasks within a day and support each other. So very important to actually be able to demonstrate those sort of teamwork skills and the ability to connect, which is how you show your ability to connect is one of the things that you're achieving through effective networking. Just to share with you that employers, from our survey in January that was done locally called Employer One, the number one method that employers used was word of mouth and personal contacts. In other words, it's through networking that people are being found and connected to companies, and that's the most popular way that employers actually, people may have used these other tools and techniques to share opportunities, but eventually it has been often their word of mouth contact and personal contacts that has been the key success factor for recruitment. Next slide, please. So a reminder, please, and we're going to spend a little bit more time on the research area, do make sure that you actually have a good solid resume, and Fanshawe's career and entrepreneurial services are fantastic at helping you make sure it's an industry relevant resume. Please make sure that on your LinkedIn profile, all your other work, you really have a good photograph. It's really difficult. I have a great photograph of myself, but it was taken a number of years ago. So no, people don't recognize me anymore, but it's nice to have a really good photograph. As Sue mentioned, your LinkedIn profile is a critical way because, by the way, most employers do look up your LinkedIn profile and perhaps your social media prior to responding to you. And that's certainly true of human resources. So do make sure that your LinkedIn profile and your social media accounts are appropriate for an employer to see. When Sue was talking about meeting with people and following up, it's critically important that you actually keep a spreadsheet of the contacts that you've made and what they've said to you. I would have one more addition to that follow-up email after meeting somebody, and that is, what was one piece of advice or interesting fact that you discovered about that person that they shared with you? In other words, acknowledge a little bit more that you've actually connected effectively and heard what that person has their experience they've shared with you. Moving on to the next slide. So that's when I mentioned doing that research, here are some of the key tools to help you really discover what are some of those growing opportunities, growing companies that you may want to connect with. First of all, from our website, we have a business directory, and it's organized in 5 key sectors, and you'll be able to find employers by size in those sectors. There's also a really good overview guide to London. It, by the way, goes over everything from working in London to playing in London to shopping in London. So another really good resource. 2 particular websites which are very well organized are the London Tech Jobs and London Manufacturing Jobs. They will show you the range of jobs in those sectors. So I think we had about 350 jobs open in London Tech Jobs and about just under 300 in London Manufacturing Jobs. Now, yes, those are current job openings, but you use a job board for networking to find, to give more information about companies, and sort of, you can detect when you look at the jobs and the job descriptions, you can often discern the trends in that organization, what they're really, where their growth is. So while you might not be ready to apply for one of those jobs now, what you would want to do is to identify a manager within those companies, knowing that they're in a growth or change mode. And then that would be, that helps you target where you want to network for your career. There are a number of different tools, and I'll just mention a couple that I think are really quite helpful to you. In addition to, of course, you can see Fanshawe's Career Services, which I know I'd be in difficulty with Sue if I didn't mention that. Again, if you go to workforcedevelopment.ca map, they actually also show where employers are in relationship to Fanshawe College. So when you are present in London, that is really helpful for you, helping you find both part-time work and also to think about connection. The workforcedevelopment.ca jobs, by the way, is an aggregator. So there was close to 6,000 jobs open in London, London, Oxford, Elgin, and Middlesex, the London Economic Region, the last time I looked. And by the way, my most popular website, just because you're curious about how much do I get paid in London and how far would it go in comparison to other communities, is a website called salaryexpert.com. That really helps you prepare to think about where are the best places to work, and how far will your salary go in respective of different communities. And of course, I would not mention it if it wasn't, if London didn't come out very successfully. So a reminder, you've got your resume and everything's ready. You're looking at those job boards to see relevant job descriptions, so that those are the kind of organizations that then you want to network with. Then I would suggest that you actually develop your own top 10 employers, a list to try to connect with. And I suggest that you only choose 2 to 3 of the larger ones, and then you try to choose 7 that you've done some work investigating what they're about, to then try to network with from those smaller and medium, where there is significant growth underway. And then you're going to follow a model that uses both information interviews and networking. Next slide, please. So a reminder, this is building on what Sue said. This is the model for when you're meeting with somebody in person. You can see down the left-hand side, it means soften. So you're softening up that relationship. So when you're meeting somebody, you would smile genuinely. You would ask, as Sue mentioned, those open-ended questions. And the next sort of slides are really about sort of what's that, you're really, when you're paying attention to somebody, you're leaning forward into the conversation, but you're also paying attention to your personal space. If for instance, I'm an Anglo, so I like a little bit more distance when I'm talking to somebody. But if I was perhaps Hispanic, I would be more comfortable being closer. But when you're a networker, it's your responsibility to put the person you're networking with at ease and to make that a comfortable relationship. Maintaining eye contact where it's appropriate, and you have to think about gender and also culture, because some cultures, eye contact is not something that should happen right away. It happens over time. And always, always use their name, practice using their name, and try to practice as much as possible saying their name the way they say it, as opposed to the way you may be used to saying it. And it's really good to understand. I really like it when people from overseas use their real name rather than come up with a different name, because they think it's easier for us to understand. In a multicultural world, we have to try much more to understand each other and to demonstrate that. Now to move to the virtual environment. So yet again, thinking about both whether you're using email to start the conversation, or it's on Zoom or one of the one of the other platforms. Think about how when you're actually opening an email or sending an email, how are your words actually being warm and welcoming to that other individual? How are you asking those open-ended questions? Are you really making sure that the kind of questions you ask are relatively short and to the point? Some of us come from cultures where we like to talk an awful lot, or we use an awful lot of words to get a simple point across. Being respectful of employers' busy times, try to keep the questions or interactions short and to the point. And then yet again, being conscious of people's time, don't barrage them. In other words, lots of different frequent interactions. Ask when's the best time with them to send or to meet, and make sure that when you're using when you're talking, when you're using when you're communicating by email, you're using you really are showing how you've listened to that person, how you're really caring about the advice they're giving you, the introductions they might make for you, etc. And yet again, please repeat using their name. Next slide, please. So, as we've discussed, networking is a key component of your long-term job searching. So when and how should I start it? The answer is on the next slide. It starts today and it never stops. Just to share with you, 4 out of my last 6 jobs I didn't apply for. In other words, I was recruited through my network, who introduced me and went straight to a hiring discussion. That's the power of having a strong network. So I look forward to meeting many of you as you come to London and as your career thrive. Over to you, Laura, for your questions.
Sorry, there we go. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for those tips, Robert. And I will just leave this slide up just for a quick second and encourage you all to follow the London Economic Development Corporation on social media. So all the usual suspects there, they have a Facebook page, Twitter, of course, LinkedIn, we know is a very powerful tool for networking, Instagram and YouTube as well. So I will stop sharing. But I just wanted to thank you both again for providing such insightful content for us today. I think that everyone should really recognize that really it's all about being sincere, taking that first step, and just putting yourself out there and, engaging with employers. That's building those networks will really benefit you in the future.
I was just going to say, do you have questions? Because one of the questions I get a lot is I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And with the pandemic, many business professionals who did not formerly use social media have started to really connect with other professionals using LinkedIn. That is your most powerful business social network platform right now. So either YouTubing how to set up a professional LinkedIn or going to the Fanshawe workshop when it comes up. I believe we run it every month. Mm-hmm. A wonderful way for you to start your LinkedIn profile and then revise it and improve it as you learn more or see other people who you admire their professional profile, and bring in some of those ideas to yours. It's a way to demonstrate your creativity, your passion, your interest, and draw people to you. That is one powerful way. Robert, you were going to mention something, I think.
Well, I think I'd like to build on that a little bit. So going back to a job board. So you go, you look and you see a company and you see a job title, which is a job that you want to apply for in the future. But then you dig down on the job description, and you'll see the job description set will probably say this reports to, and it'll have a title. So you take that title, then you use the company name in LinkedIn, and then you're finding somebody to connect with in that company. In other words, so they don't give you the name on the job description, but then you use LinkedIn to then find that individual and ask to connect, because that's the person in the hiring chain that you want to connect to, not necessarily the person in human resources. So that's the way to use the tools that we've been sharing with you to actually identify. So as I say, I like that idea of really bookmarking three larger companies in the sector that you're looking to work in, and then 7 of the smaller and medium, looking at the job boards to find relevant job titles that are relevant to you, and then looking for who they report to, putting that title and the company name in, and up pops normally the name of somebody or 1 or 2 people who may share the same title to connect with. Really good way if you've done some really good way of discovering who are good people to network with.
That really shows your initiative and also your attention to detail as well, that you're able to seek out that information.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like the student becomes the detective.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, information either from the website or LinkedIn, where do I go for the other information? And it's different every time.
Yeah, and I also will share another perspective that I have, which is often we give too much power to the employer as job seekers. In other words, you through Fanshawe are developing some incredibly relevant skills to the company's need. By you doing your building your network and you choosing to connect with companies, you're taking more control of the choices that you have, rather than giving that choice to a company. So think about that way. That way you're actually driving your future career success by being in control, by having that developing that network, prospecting well.
All of the students here, yes, I totally concur with that. That as an employer previously in a previous life, I loved when people came to me, because you do, because it takes courage. It takes personal integrity to reach out. So be that one, be the unicorn, we call it. And that is how you become noticed, not in a pushy manner, but in a sincere and curious manner.
Mm-hmm.
I see a question here. Oh, sorry, Laura.
That's okay. Yeah, we'll just go to some of these questions here. Yes. So first, Toyosi, I just want to assure you that both Sue and Robert's presentations will be available to you. You're welcome to email us at fanshawecares@fanshawec.ca, and we can provide you with a copy of the presentation. As I mentioned, it'll also be available on our Fanshawe Cares YouTube playlist on the Fanshawe International YouTube page. So you can rewatch this session. You can also rewatch any of our previous sessions as well. A few other questions. Himal, I thought you could help out with this one, Sue. Himal's asking, will Fanshawe help us in our co-op placement? So could you just describe that a little bit?
For sure. Himal, we are helping you and supporting you in that effort. Of course, we can't go on the interviews for you, but we can definitely help you identify key strengths to mention on your resume, how to match yourself using a professional cover letter, how to practice those interviews. You've already seen an introduction to that tool called Interview Stream, and you will take when you're in the co-op program 6 weeks of employment preparation workshops to help you know how to find that co-op work term. It is your responsibility as a student. As I say, I can't go to the interviews, so we don't match you with a company because so much of the success is that fit beyond skill sets. It's how you are in the world. And does your personality, passion, interest, and knowledge all fit? So we don't place you into a co-op, but we help you find appropriate co-op opportunities for yourself.
Awesome. Thank you, Sue. Did you have something to add, Robert?
Well, I want to talk about the next one. Does Fanshawe welcome students for on-campus part-time work and et cetera? Well, yes, there are some part-time jobs in campus, and those will normally be posted through the job board, I believe, at Fanshawe. But I want to point out, though, that Fanshawe's locations in London, specifically, are well located. Both the South Campus, the downtown campus, and the Oxford Street all have some great employers closely located. As I mentioned, both using the LEDC website and the business directory, you can find companies geographically, i.e. what are close to those locations. Also, that function is within the workforcedevelopment.ca or the local jobs hub. That way, which I mentioned has 9,000 jobs posted, of which there are a good number of part-time jobs.
Right.
So that's really a good tool because obviously if you're looking for part-time work, you want it to fit with your studies and you don't want to spend too much time in the transit process. So those are the tools, I think, to find some of those opportunities close by to your classroom activity.
I'm happy to also share a little bit more information around on-campus work specific to international students because we do have a program at Fanshawe. It's called the International Student Work Experience Program, and that is facilitated by our financial aid office. So what you can do is reach out to our career services team and review their job board to see if they have any ISWEP jobs, is what you'll often hear it called, ISWEP. And what this will allow you to do is work on campus for up to 10 hours per week. So working on campus is a great option for international students. So that's another program that you can review, and there's information on that on the Financial Aid Services webpage. I think Moksha has a really interesting question here. Yeah. They're asking about the sir/ma'am debate. Could you guys please expand on that and let us know, what do you think about titles?
That's a really great question. I haven't had that one for a long time. I'll go, but I want Robert's input too. One of the key ways to know how to address someone is by listening to how they introduce themselves. If they say, "I'm Peter Smith," then you say, "Hello, Peter. Nice to meet you." If you're meeting a professor, "I'm Professor Jones," then you can say Professor. I always go by Sue. It's very common within the last 20 years for people to go by their first name or their title, Professor, Doctor. In co-op, I'm actually not a professor, so Dear Sue is just fine. You can put the prefix Dear Ms. Bennett. I'm married, but Ms. Bennett is fine. But that's much rarer unless you're writing a formal business letter. Then it may change a little bit. First names actually are more preferable unless they're your actual doctor, professor, lawyer. Go ahead, Peter, or Robert.
Well,
I don't even know Peter.
I would echo that, although I would think that if you're doing something on email or LinkedIn, you might actually be using Mr. or Miss.
Yes.
As the first interaction, and because then it gives the person power to say, "Please call me by my first name or whatever, right? So it depends on, because you don't know what their comfort level is. I would suggest, though, you might from their LinkedIn profile be able to guess what generation they're in. And I would suggest if they're in a younger generation, they would be quite happy with going with their given name, the name they use. But once you get over Sue's age,
Thank you.
if you were to start, just to show that, and it depends on your age too. In other words, what's the age gap?
Right.
I think a little bit as well. So
that's very true.
I would suggest that.
Very true.
And
yes.
Sue will get me back later for that comment.
and Moksha, you posed your question in such a kind and polite way.
Yeah.
So what I would recommend as well is just ask the person if there's, referring names are really important, as we talked about earlier in the presentation. So, to make sure you're in a respectful environment, just quickly pose the question, what should I call you? And, then you have your answer.
Because it does go to, I'm sorry, but it also goes to fit. I mean, if they introduce themselves and they correct you once and then you go back to your old way, it's going, like the person is, and then everybody's uncomfortable if you keep being too formal kind of thing, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, so Gay, I'm just going back to your question here to verify about working conditions. Now, it's really important for international students to know and to follow the work conditions on their study permit. So thankfully, we do have a session coming up on November 24th, where we'll be joined by one of our international student immigration advisors, and they'll be able to talk to you about working while studying. So really, really important for students to make sure they're always complying with the conditions of their study permit and understanding to make sure they're following all the rules to be compliant. So please do attend that session on November the 24th. You know where we'll be, 9:30 to 10:30, as we have been every day. So we do hope you'll join us for that event. I see the questions are slowing down, so we're just about at the end of our time together today. So I'd once again really like to thank Robert and Sue for all of your insights on the job searching and the networking process, and really learning that it is truly about building relationships. And I think that's sort of my most important takeaway from your talk today.
It's our pleasure. I really enjoyed meeting you and answering the questions. Know that the Student and Entrepreneurial Services have career consultants. If you're not in a co-op program and you're job hunting and need support, there are individual career consultants for your program and group workshops. And then, of course, for your co-op, this co-op students here, you will have 6 weeks. 6 different employment preparation sessions in level 1 to get you going on your tools for job search and ideas for where the jobs are.
Lovely to meet so many of you, and look forward to seeing you in London very soon.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And we hope we will see everyone again tomorrow, where we'll be hearing from our guests from the Fanshawe Wellness Center, a beautiful new wellness space. So they're going to tell you all about that and share some details. So with that, I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and we will see you again tomorrow. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye.